everyone, I'm Lauren and welcome back to my channel. This is Lighting Lavender, where we talk about all things books and my own writing journey, and we're still in March, so it still counts to be able to do my February wrap up. So as you can see, I've kind of changed location slightly. I've not really had much motivation to film. I don't know what it is, I've just been in sort of like a weird slump creatively for the past 6 weeks anyway. So I am currently sat on the floor with my computer on this side of me and my mini bookshelf behind me, so you can actually see some of the books that I actually own or enjoy. February was a good reading month for me. I was going to say it was bad, but it wasn't. I managed to get through 4 books in February, which I am really happy with because I did struggle, and I also read The Way of Kings, which is like, I think it's 1200 pages. I managed to find a copy of it just in one volume, so that took up 2 weeks of my time just reading that mammoth book on its own. The first book that I read in February was The Atlantis Bloodline by C.A. Gray. I gave this one 2 stars overall. It was an okay book. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I received this book from Book Sirens to do an honest review and give my honest thoughts about it, and honestly it was so disappointing. It sounded like such a great book. So we have the main character, whose name I have currently forgotten. I think it's Andrea. It's something beginning with A, and she lives with her dad. Her mum died when she was young. She's got this weird scar on her neck, and suddenly this rock star guy finds her and stalks her for a day and then asks her on a date. In the first sort of 10% of the book, we find out that the history of Atlantis is real, and the people from Atlantis have some sort of magical abilities, and this stalker rockstar guy is one of these people. And it also turns out that the main character, Audrey, I can't remember her name, has some connection to them as well, but that doesn't get explained until further into the book, and I don't want to go into too many spoilers. The problem I had with this book is that it sort of screamed late 2000s, early 2010s sort of I'm not like other girls mentality, and it was very sort of like pick me-esque. I didn't enjoy the character that much. I thought that the story did go okay. It picked up, and up until maybe the last 10% or so, I'd have probably given it a 3-star. It wasn't too bad. There was inconsistencies with the names of things in different countries. The author had done a lot of research into what they were talking about, which kind of bugged me because I did the research to see if maybe I was wrong, because I didn't think that what I was thinking of was wrong, but it turned out the author just hadn't done the research. Literally a 5-minute Google search would have solved that issue, and I just couldn't get over this sort of I couldn't get over the relationship. It was very reminiscent, not fully of Twilight, but that sort of genre and style of writing, and I just couldn't get behind it, and I didn't really enjoy it that much. The second book that I read, or actually listened to, in February was Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This book is the first book that he ever wrote, and is also set within his Cosmere universe, although it's on a completely separate planet to any of the Mistborn or the Stormlight archives. In this book we follow 2 main characters, Serene and Ryadan, who are both linked to, is it Aeon? I can't remember the name of this country, but the main premise is that Elantris was the city of the gods, and then 10 years ago Elantris fell. The way that Elantris fell is that the magic and the power possessed by the Elantrians disappeared, and once this disappeared, through no understanding of the people in the area, it caused a lot of upheaval, and Ryadan, at the start of the book, is unfortunately afflicted with the Sheol, which is what caused the Elantrians to be Elantrians. This book is not very heavy on fantasy. It's very much more sort of like historical fiction. I think I would call it historical fantasy with a sort of really strong, heavy view of the politics. I really loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I loved the way that the politics were intertwined within the narrative of the story. I really enjoyed learning about Elantris and the magic that was possessed there, and trying to understand how to draw the Aeons to create the magic around it. I really loved it. I thought it was a really great inventive piece of storytelling. I've heard a lot of people say that this is Brandon Sanderson's weaker book because it is his first one, but honestly I didn't see that many issues with it. I didn't think there was that many problems with this book compared to some of his newer ones. I guess all writers progress from the first book. The first book you write is never going to be the best book you write because you're constantly improving and constantly learning, and if you're not, then you're doing something wrong. Although it might potentially be his weakest in terms of writing, I don't think it's weakest in terms of plot or characters. I loved it. I've heard that there's going to be a sequel to Elantris at some point within the Cosmere, and I'm so excited because I loved the world there and I really want to get back into it. I'd love to understand more along the idea of the I can't remember what they're called, but they're like floating spirit things. They're not aeons because that's the thing. I can't remember what they are, but they're like AI in spirit bubbly things that can do FaceTime. It's the only way to describe it, and I just loved everything about it, and I really can't wait to hopefully jump back into that world at some point in the future when Sanderson's had time to write those books. The third book that I read in February was The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, so I had a very heavy month full of Sanderson. I'm glad that Elantris was an audiobook because I don't think I could have read both books in one month, to be honest. The Way of Kings is the start of the Stormlight Archive, which is part of Brandon Sanderson's magnus opus, if you want to call it that. It is one of the main areas of the Cosmere and one of the main story points. This is going to be a 10-book series, at least from what I have read on Sanderson's website. We are introduced to our 4 main characters. I'd say there's maybe like 4 or 5. I think the 3 main characters are Dalinar, Kaladin and Shallan, and then we've got Yasna, I think is how it's pronounced, and Sezin, son of someone, because he refuses to go by son of his dad's name because he doesn't want to bring dishonour on his dad. I remember that bit. At 1200 pages, this was a whopper. This was a tome of a tome. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. To me, I love anything that goes into like the history, the mythology, the world building. I don't know what it is. I think it's because I love historical fantasy, historical fiction so much even. And these sort of like fantasy books delve into that in a little bit more detail and go more into the political side of things, and I love it. I can get behind these books. The main focus of this story is Shallan, who is a young girl who is trying to save her family. Her family is a noble family, but her father has died in secret, and she does this by trying to become a ward of Yasna in the hopes of stealing her magical thing, Fabriel, which can create the rocks that the family was mining in the mines, because if they don't have that, the family will become destitute and lose their place, and they will probably all be slaughtered. So Shallan is trying to lead this double life. Over the course of this, she realises that she really enjoys the study aspect that she's been lying about, and she really wants to go into more detail with it, and she doesn't want to betray Yasna. Yasna's side of the story is that she is looking into the mythology behind their entire existence. So she's trying to look into the mythology behind it with Voidbringers and the Knights Radiants, who were supposed to battle throughout time to keep the world safe, and something happened where that stopped and the Knights Radiant disappeared and left humanity to fend for itself. I really love the world building in this. I love the idea that there's no sort of like fluffy animals, because these high storms make it impossible for anything other than like crustacean-like creatures to exist, and the plants are like hidden in rocks, and they remind me of like sea anemones. When there's something coming near, they like shrink back inside themselves, and the grass doesn't grow and stay out. The grass shrinks back down into the ground, and I loved all these like little things. It's kind of like having a underwater world but in the normal world, and it was so cool. I loved it. The problem with this book is if you go into too much of it, because there's so much detail in this book, it's easy to spoil a certain aspect. So I don't really want to go too far into it, apart from to say if you really enjoy fantasy that has a high, is very character driven and is sort of historical in features, then this would probably be a really good book for you to read. I think that hits those sort of spots. If you really enjoy historical fiction and fantasy, I think this is a good one. And the 4th and final book that I read in February was The Lovely War by Julie Berry. This book features the Greek gods and World War I, and I think it's set during World War II. This book shows that the Greek gods are still in control of the world, and they influence people and they make the world move in the way that it does. The story starts with Hephaestus catching Aphrodite and Ares in a hotel, and he puts them on trial to prove if Aphrodite is faithful or not. So Aphrodite tells a love story about these two couples, one from England and one couple who the guy is a jazz player from America, but he's also black, which is important to the story because it goes into some of the racism throughout World War I and the racism within America at that time, and how the army was happy to have them to help but not really, which I thought was a really interesting touch point within the story, and I really enjoyed that. And then the person he ends up with is a Belgian girl. So Aphrodite weaves the story of love, and it's so romantic, and she calls on Ares, Apollo and Hades to tell their parts of the story, because it's not just love that tells the story. Love was the ultimate theme behind it, but war, music and death were all intertwined because this was World War I, so it's gonna have all these different aspects to it. I just thought it was so sweet, and it gave me like warm fuzzy feelings. There was a lot of parts that made me sort of like jump and want to like hide back, because we were set in World War I, people can die really easily, and we'd got like this massive racism element, so it was like, oh my god. But loved it, absolutely wonderful. I did only give this one 4 stars though, because I put the book down and I didn't feel the urge to pick it back up, so it wasn't as sort of pulling and gripping as some of the things that I have read the rest of this year, but it was still a really good book and I would really recommend it if you love Greek mythology. I love the like little aspects and hints of that, so it pulls back from the World War I story to the gods in this hotel room in the present day, or like the World War II setting, and I do like the sort of juxtaposition between the two and how the gods interact. It was just so many wonderful elements like woven into one book. God, I can't get my words out. So that was my wrap up for February. I'm sorry it's a little bit late. Hopefully I'll be back on track from now on, but I think I need to go outside. I think I'm just fed up with being in this house. This is a tiny house for 2 people, and pretty much this corner where I'm sat is where I sit every day for about 12 hours a day. I think I just need to get out of this space and find somewhere else to go and do some new things. I can't wait till we can travel around the UK, because I am gonna drag Todd off and we are gonna go on an adventure somewhere because I need it. I think we both need it, to be honest. I'm hoping to do a live stream on Wednesday next week, so Wednesday the 31st of March. I'm not sure on the time yet, I'm thinking about 7 o'clock. I have the house to myself because Todd has to work away, so maybe I need to work away to get the creativity back. So I'm thinking of doing a live stream to get some writing sprints in. If you want to host it with me, let me know. Drop me a comment or send me a message on Twitter or Instagram or wherever, and I will get that sorted and arranged. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like, and if you want to see more of my videos, there's a new one out every single week, or at least there should be. I hope you're all well and you're all staying safe, and until next time, bye!